painting hacks that will help make your painting job faster, cleaner, and look better. Okay, this sounds good to me, Sharon. I think if it saves us some time or make things go a little bit easier, it's a good thing to share.
Absolutely, I'm all into that. It can be a big job painting, so getting some of this stuff out of the way is great. And you know what? I've got a lot of painting hacks that can kind of help us save time, because I know that's a really important thing, but also save our tools. You know, we invest in these great tools. You want to save them, you want to protect them, and you also want to prevent some mess. So I've got some hacks for that too.
Ooh, we're even going to be clean about it. Okay, what is your first hack?
So when it comes to taping the whole room, taping around your trim, preventing areas that you don't want painted from getting painted. It's important to do that for sure if you've got handles and hardware and that sort of thing that you haven't removed. However, you can save time by, as I showed you in my last segment, if you can cut in. Now I know this isn't for everybody. Cutting in can be tricky, but if you can get yourself a really good quality angle sash brush, so it's tapered, and it's tapered at the end and thin, so you can get a nice straight line. That will save you taping the ceiling and taping areas. You might end up doing it anyway, but here's another thing that you can use, another great tool, these trim guides. These I find, I don't love using them because I find that I always end up getting a little bit too much paint on the edge, but have a rag handy. You kind of put it into an area like this, you can paint your trim. But I find these great if you've got a textured ceiling or a carpet or something that you can sort of push it down, and that allows you to paint your trim without trying to tape your carpet, which is a real pain. Drywall trowel kind of works. These little plastic putty knives can work in a pinch, but what I've discovered works really well is steal your kids' file folders from school if you have a nice heavy, right? A nice acetate one like this, it kind of fits really nicely. And then again, same thing, don't put too much paint on, just like pretend you are taping, so you're being careful. And then there you go.
Very
nice
cool.
Straight line.
Okay, so you also have, I like your next one, you've got a tip for how you can get a really crisp edge in with painter's tape.
Yes, okay, yeah, we were just talking about not using painter's tape, but you know what? We need painter's tape when you're trying to get a really crisp line for sure. If you're doing color blocking, which we talk about a lot on the show, maybe doing an accent wall or even stripes, you want to get a super crisp line. Now it's going to be a bit tricky to see here, but I've got a trick that allows perfect straight lines. Versus, even with a really good painter's tape, if you're painting over a wall that's been painted 20 times, like most of the walls in my house, they're a little rough. So there's always a little spot where the tape has a gap, and you end up with what's called bleeding, and you can sort of see these little spots. And it can be really annoying, especially when there's a graphic color change. So what you want to do is use good quality painter's tape for sure. That's your first tip. But then you want to put the base coat color over the edge of the tape first. So in this case, I used a color called Inner Peach on the base. You can see that I've put a little bit of that. I've let it dry, so I just did it before. You let that dry just to seal that little tiny gap that you can't see, so that the color that's going to bleed through, if anything, is your base coat, so it'll be invisible. Okay, so you've done that. Some people use silicone. I've seen that on TikTok. I think that's kind of cool, but I don't want to go out and buy silicone if I don't need it. So I find if you have the base coat color, it works perfect. So then, once that's dried, you put your, whatever color you're using, your accent color, your color block, you put it here. I'm going to put some also on the side that I didn't use my base coat color, and then we'll pull it off. And again, you might need to put 2 coats if you were doing a full wall, and you might even be rolling it, but just to get the idea. Then we will pull it off. And you can see that the line is really super straight on this side because I put that base coat underneath.
Got it. That makes a lot of sense. Yeah, as the first coat, that makes sense. Okay, your next hack is about the dreaded brush cleaning. Please help us.
Yes, and actually tape too. You shouldn't do this, okay? When you're removing tape, roll it in so you don't make a big mess like I just did all over my laundry room. Okay. Cleaning your mess. All right, so you've got your brush, it's wet. the best hack to prevent, or best hack for cleaning is don't clean it, okay? Clean it at the end when you're completely finished with the project. But in the interim, if I'm just gonna be waiting a couple of hours for a second coat, you have to make sure it doesn't dry on the brush or you're gonna destroy your brushes. So this is where you can use, all of us have these in the kitchen, right? Like a bag of bags.
Yeah.
Okay, so reuse some of those grocery bags. This works really well for rollers as well. Stick it inside, seal out the air, and just keep it there temporarily. If you know you're going to be doing this tomorrow, you might want to seal it all up and put it in the fridge. But otherwise, it works fine just for a few hours or even, pretty much till the next day. But here's a really great one that I discovered. If you're using gloves anyway, which you should, I don't always, but I should. Actually, you should use one that doesn't have a hole in it, but if you're using your painter's gloves, and even the little plastic ones, you can turn this inside out, and voila.
Oh.
Use your glove to sort of be like that plastic bag, so you're not wasting any extra plastic. Tie it up with an elastic band, same thing. And then when you're ready to go back to the project, you can carefully take it back out, put your hands in there, and you are good to go. And
that is very cool. And we all have latex gloves hanging around these days because we all need them. So very smart, their hack there. Let's talk about storing the brushes. You've got a hack for that?
Yes, and this is a really funny hack, and I'm sure my paint stores are going to say this is not a hack, Sharon, but keep the packaging. Sounds crazy, but if you keep the packaging, you can, after you've really done a good job of cleaning your brushes, because I always buy really good quality brushes because they'll last a long time, clean them really well, but then it's important to keep them nice and stiff. So putting them back in the packaging that is usually a little bit of a wax finish in there is the best thing that you can do. But if you threw out the packaging and didn't think about that at the beginning, then you can do a few different things. You can use masking tape. You could wrap masking tape around it just to keep it stiff. I've used parchment paper because sometimes in our house we do more baking than painting. So parchment paper will work. The idea is to use something that is stiff, wrap it with an elastic band, and then that way it will store really well and it'll be ready for you when you're starting your next paint project.
Ooh, all great tips. Amazing. Listen, before we go to break, we actually have a viewer question for you, Sharon. And viewer Suzanne writes, we purchased our house a few months ago and have painted most of the walls in Benjamin Moore Fog Mist and Cloverdale rice paper in the living room. I'd planned to paint the brick fireplace, but now I'm just not sure. If so, what color would you recommend? My initial thought was a warm white and adding a chunky wood mantle. Now, Sharon, this is such a popular question, and you just did a project like this right before the holidays, right?
I did, yes. Painting out the fireplace is a really popular project when it's the brick ones especially. It can make such a difference. So I saw the living room. It's gorgeous. I love the furnishing. She painted out all of the original oak trim. So she's obviously trying to lighten and brighten it. So I think go for it. Paint out that fireplace. I think the texture is gorgeous, but it is a little bit busy with all the different colors of bricks, so I think you're going to absolutely love it when you paint it. A couple of things. I was looking at a creamy white, as you suggested, would be a great option. Something like floral white would be a nice option. But I was also thinking you could go even a little bit darker. I love the color of your chairs, that nice heavy textile. So maybe something more like white down or edgecomb gray from the historical palette. So it'll be a little bit darker, a little bit more like a putty color, but still it'll be clean and not so distracting when it's just in one color. Love the idea of cladding that horizontal brick detail with some wood. I think that will really give it a more modern spin. So you have to send us a picture if you finish it.
Yes, you do. It's going to look absolutely incredible. And Sharon, we're so lucky to have you. Thank you for all of your great advice and your awesome hacks. So good.